Okay, now we're going to build a little context around our outdoor pavilion or whatever we would want to call it. And we want to make this curved wall. I want you to experiment with the idea of creating these kind of conceptual masses that you can make in the wall surfaces. You can actually make a curved wall inside of Revit. Obviously, that's not a problem, but the problem comes in if you want to make a curved wall that has a curved top to it, so to speak. And so we're going to go through a process of making a more complex kind of wall surface. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to go to a new conceptual mass. And once again, if you don't have that, I can provide that conceptual mass file for you. And we're going to make a couple of reference planes to kind of scout out our area here. So I'm going to make these 70 feet apart. And I know I didn't catch that right because I think it's just easier to probably just type in 70 here. Oops, not 70 feet. And I'm going to make another one on the other side, and maybe I can catch it this time. No. Okay, so that'll give us a wall that'll ultimately be 140 feet long. And remember, our structure was out at 100 feet, so this is going to be a little bit longer on both sides. And let's go ahead now and make a curved wall surface. So I'm going to set the reference plane to the bottom plane, or make sure that I've set it. And I'm going to build a NURBS curve. And I'm not critical where I'm laying these points yet because we're going to go to the top view of it. And I'm going to manipulate these so that they line up perfectly. So I'm going to drag it onto the reference line that we made. And I seem to have a hard time doing that for some reason. Let me just zoom in here a little bit. Here we go. Do this with the other point. A little bit frustrating about the smoothness. All right, and I don't want it to be quite that curved. Maybe that's a good amount of curve. And now we want a top surface that's also curved, but we want it curved in both directions. So I'm going to go to the south elevation of this, or try to. And I'm going to just copy this curve up. And remember, we have at least 40 feet into the air. So I'll come up, let's say 50 feet or thereabouts. And I'm going to now kind of reshape this curve in the other direction, this kind of vertical direction. And this is the thing you actually can't do inside of Revit with the normal construction of a curved wall. All right, so now we have somewhat of a curved shape on both directions. And oops, sorry, let me rotate around to this. And now we're actually going to take that conceptual mass and create it. It should be just a surface, so I've selected both those lines. I'm going to go create form. And now we have a curved wall surface that we can import into our project. So let's go ahead and do this. So I haven't named this yet, so we'll go ahead and save it and give it a name, just so we can come back to it. Curved wall, I'll call it. Whoops. And we'll go ahead and load that into the project, and we want to load it into our major project. That'll take us into the plan view, and now we have that curve that we can kind of set next to our space frame. That warning that comes up is once again about not being able to do some of the metric measurings of a mass surface since it has no volume to it. So let's just take a peek at this now in the 3D view again. And actually things are getting a little bit confusing here because we have so much going on. I'm going to close off some files here in a second. So here we have that conceptual mass curved surface. I haven't applied a texture or anything to it yet. We'll do that next. Let's just go through here and see what we have open. That's a project file. We can close that off. Let's see what this 3D view is. This is actually the space frame itself. So I think we can close that off now. We don't need that any longer. And we'll save any changes to it. And we can close off our curved wall. And I think then maybe we'll have everything. Nope, we can close off our adaptive column. We're done with that. think our space frame itself, we'll save that, and I'll close it off, and I'm going to overwrite it. Okay, so now one of the things I want to do right now is actually to change this mass, this conceptual mass here, into actually a wall. So I'm going to go to Architecture, and I'm going to use a tool that we used once before in one of our in-class exercises. We're going to make a wall by face, and we'll just select a generic masonry wall at this point. And I'm going to go ahead and click on that. You'll notice how that gets thick, and it's got that banding to it. And that is because our conceptual mass is also showing. And that's coupled with these kind of blue outlines here. So if we go to Massing and Site, we can click this, and that will turn those elements off for us. So then, the next thing I want to do is add a texture to this wall surface. So I'm going to go ahead and select it. Try to. I'm not sure why I can't. Let me hit pause. So I couldn't select anything because I was still in the changing surfaces into walls. So now I've got things back under control again. And let's go ahead and give this a texture. So I've got a basic masonry wall. I'm going to go to Edit Type and duplicate it for a custom wall. And this can have any texture you want. If you don't want to do it the way I'm showing you right now, you could add any other kind of texture you might want to add to it. Totally acceptable. I just want to show you this technique, and I kind of like the stonework that I have available for this. So one of the things I want to do right away is, actually, I'm going to pop out of this for a second. Let me just cancel this a minute and go OK with that. It's now still a custom wall, and I'm going to hide Revit, and I'm going to go to the stone texture download that I've created. That's going to open this texture in a new file. If I right click on it, I can save this image, and I'm going to try and save it to exactly where it's supposed to be in my project. So give me a second here. And stone, and I'll call it, well, I'll just leave it as stone. That's fine. And I'll save that. Then I can close off my browser here. I don't need that. And we'll come back to Revit. And now I'm going to grab the wall and go to Edit Type and create a new texture for it. Go to Structure. A lot of these things we keep going through. Maybe they seem a little boring, but hopefully that helps to give you kind of a muscle memory for these things. I want to be able to select that texture. Then we'll go to, sorry, I keep bouncing to the other screen every time I hit that button. Create a new texture, default material. I'm going to right click on that and rename it. We'll call it stone. And then I want to go over here and import that stone texture. I did that pretty quick, but I just clicked on the stone or the image and it automatically opened up the file. And we actually need to make a little bit of revision to that. So I'm going to click on it. It's only 1 foot by 1 foot, and we really want that texture to be much larger. And this is a pretty good texture because it doesn't have a banding to it. So it looks pretty good when we tile it, so to speak. So I'll click Apply and OK, and OK, and OK. And now we have a stone texture applied. And as you can see, there's just a little hint of banding on the top to the next one down. We have a little bit of optical distortion because I've actually been manipulating this. Let's go back to setting this for the eye level. I'll do 72. Oops, I don't know why it did that. Let's try one more time. 72, oops, I don't want 72 feet, I want 72 inches, 6 feet. And now everything's nice and crisp and vertical, so there's just no confusion as to what we're looking at. So let's go ahead. Just before we leave this, I'm going to add a little more context to this before we build a presentation sheet. We also don't have a ground plane, which would be nice, but let's go ahead now and set some realistic rendering settings. So I'm going to go to the graphic display and do my usual host of choices. Get rid of the edges, smooth it out a little bit. kick up some shadows. And add some sky to it. And we'll click apply. And it looks a little harsh. Could be that we didn't not really throwing the light on it, but that's not too bad. I'm wondering if I can, let's see what we can do with the lighting here. Let's try to kick up the ambient lighting a little bit. Got a lot of, maybe it's the shadows. I really want the framework to look more white, and I actually might go back and change the color of the frame a little bit. It seems to be this kind of mottled gray. So actually I'm going to do that. I'm going to create a white and apply it to the truss and to these frame systems, and I won't bother you in the video doing that. You can go ahead and do that on your own, or it might look better in your rendering, but I think it'll help to enhance things. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now.